Hi, everyone. Thanks for sticking around. My name's Anthony Johnstone, coming to you from the great state of Montana. I'm a law professor now, but in my last job, I represented the state of Montana. And one of the things we did about 9 years ago, the Attorney General, Steve Bullock then, and I, is take 26 states together, blue and red, in a bipartisan effort, and go to the Supreme Court and fight against Citizens United case. Why? From a state's perspective, here we're talking about big money. See that big money there? That's real money. That is 10 $1,000 bills stuffed in an envelope, literally, around the turn of the last century by William A. Clark, Copper King, and thrown over the transom of legislators' offices to buy his way into the U.S. Senate. And so we knew something about corruption, and we stood up and told the court, don't do this. They did it anyway, but we kept the fight going, and we followed up. Montana was the only state after Citizens United to stand up and defend our Corrupt Practices Act, which had been around for a century. Why? Well, it gave us the opportunity to tell the story of this guy, William A. Clark, the Copper King, and how he took his money and put it into our state capital and unduly influenced, drowned out the voices of everyday Montanans. Well, that didn't work either, and so they struck down, after 100 years, our Corrupt Practices Act. Now, in the wake of Citizens United, one of the big concerns, and this is a concern we talked about yesterday on a panel, is this idea of foreign influence. Right? You've got a lot more money coming into the system, and one of these challenges that happened at the State of the Union, President Obama raised this thread of this foreign money coming into our elections. Justice Alito said, not true. Well, it turns out that that case was challenged. There are some foreign citizens of foreign country, foreign nationals tried to spend. And the Supreme Court and Citizens United basically punted on that, which was good. And Citizens United, they said, this doesn't really deal with foreign money. And in a later case, a lower court said, well, you know what? Citizens United is not about the right for outsiders to come into our jurisdiction and spend money. In relatively common sense, it's fundamental to the definition of our national political community that foreign citizens don't have a right to participate in our self-government. But that raises a question for the states. One of the reasons I got involved in the Citizens United fight is that there are also 50 states, and there's out-of-state influence. And that outside influence, I'm here to tell you, lots of the folks around here today, we're coming together in a big exercise in outside influence. I'm not saying that outside influence in general is wrong. We want to take these great ideas, take them back to our home states, and bring them there. That's fine. But after Citizens United, with an amount of money coming into campaigns, the idea of outside money coming in, outside influence through money, is a concern. And that's what I want to talk about today and some of the possible solutions. We've got 50 states. We've got localities. We've got 3,000 counties, hundreds of thousands of localities, cities, towns. And this is a concern, right? Within the past 10 years in state campaigns, for example, just within a small period, just within those 3 adjoining states, it's happening all over. But in a ballot issue in North Dakota, in a Supreme Court election, an infamous Supreme Court election in Iowa, and the recall election in Wisconsin, in all of those campaigns, there was more money spent from out-of-staters than raised from in-staters. And that's a concern because I believe money is a necessary evil in politics, but if it's going to be there, the lesser evil is that it's money from your own constituents, that there's that basic connection there. And that breaks down when you have campaigns like this, where the money's pouring in from out of state. Worse, it's taking over state parties. My friends at the National Institute on Money and State Politics did a study recently. In recent years, there's been more outside money going into state parties in several states than inside money. State parties, local parties, that's, again, parties may be a necessary evil, but that's where they connect to their voters. They can't do that if they're out trying to raise money and impress out-of-state voters. So that's a concern. Now you'd think, fortunately, the Supreme Court said, well, whose government is this anyway? Well, it's constituents who have the right to support their candidates. That's what the Supreme Court said. Great. One problem, In that case, they weren't talking about constituents. They were talking about contributors. In this case, McCutcheon, the Supreme Court recognized the right of someone else outside of your jurisdiction to pool huge amounts of money to spend in my congressman's jurisdiction. And they recognized that right. So there is a basic right for people to spend money in other states. There are still a few things we can do, though, to address this and to help control. Welcome those outside voices in, but not allow them to dominate our state and local campaigns. One is contribution limits. So Alaska, which is off of this public domain map that I got, you can limit the amount of money coming in from out of state so that no one office holder is beholden to a majority of out-of-state money. We heard from Matt from New York City's innovative matching program, right, where you're using inside money to leverage against the outside money. Or Seattle's democracy voucher program, where, again, from inside money, you're able to allow them to combat that outside money. And finally, disclosure, paying attention to where the money comes from. That's something that most sophisticated campaign finance laws have, but we could do a better job of noticing where the money comes from, looking to zip codes, to jurisdictions. How much is in is how much is out. These are the sorts of things that focus on not just how much money is at stake, but whose. And if you're a supporter of any of these things, another reason to support them is addressing that outside money, outside influence problem. If you're not a supporter of these things, but you're worried about outside money, think about supporting better disclosure, campaign contribution limits based on out of jurisdiction, and those innovative matching programs. So that all of us, when we vote, right, see those little people there, we can be sure that money's a necessary evil, but at least it's our money, no matter how much it is. Thanks, everyone.